everyone, welcome to a first draft writing vlog. I am currently in the process of writing my first draft and I would like you to join the process with me. The next few days are going to be all about writing my first draft, and I thought it would be really nice to give you a behind the scenes look, like what's going through my head specifically about my first draft and what it's like to write a first draft, especially as someone who is writing their very first novel and I don't have any writing experience before this. So let's talk a little bit about my novel and where I am in the first draft process. I am almost a third of the way done with my book. And that sounds crazy to me because as I've been writing, I feel like I've barely gotten started and I've already written so much. But let me tell you about my first draft because it is a hot mess. It is not great, honestly. Does that have to do with the fact that I've never written a book before? Probably. I have heard other authors say that their first drafts are terrible too, and it's just something you have to expect as a writer, but I'm just not sure. Like, I see my shortcomings and I'm just not sure if my draft is even good enough to be a first draft. Writing a first draft is definitely not for the faint of heart. I have had my ups and downs. First, the ups, I'm really loving writing. I really enjoy the writing process and using my imagination and coming up with a good story. I've found myself giggling while I make dialogue between characters and like being shocked because I came up with some shocking thing. So it's fun to feel the emotion as you're writing. Also, like I said, I'm a third of the way done with this book. And I am so proud of myself for how much I've written so far. It has not been easy, but it has totally been worth it. Like, even if this whole thing doesn't pan out, which by the way, I think it will, I am just so grateful to have started this and pursuing writing a book. It's just been really great. So now for the downs. I really am floundering a lot of times while I'm writing my first draft. I came up with like a basic outline and I figured I would write things as I go along. I definitely have thought of things as I go along and incorporated that into the story. But I have recently discovered I still have tons of plot holes. I still have things yet to be decided. Like randomly, I'll think of a country, like I'll reference a country and I'm like, oh, I never thought of a name for that country. And I put a placeholder in there. There's going to be a lot of going back and changing names of things. I have plot holes when I'm writing. I uncover my own plot holes and then I'm just like, oh, now that's something else I need to fix. I feel like my list of things to fix is growing and growing and growing, and I'm only a third of the way done with this story. And I cannot imagine how much worse it's going to get by the time I get to this book. My list of things to fix is probably going to be pages and pages long. But I'm going to cross that bridge when I get to it because I'm still pretty far off from that. That's kind of been like the ups and downs of this, is enjoying the process, but still having a lot of issues writing. I have made improvements, I will say. I've noticed after writing a third of the book, my first few chapters were really bad. I struggled, especially as someone who's never written before. It was hard for me to form those first paragraphs and write my first dialogue. It was very choppy, but I did get better at that as I went along. I'm not saying I'm perfect or I'm great, but it is getting better. Like, I can tell as I'm writing, I'm not hesitating and I'm kind of jumping right in there to describe something. So that is going a little more smoothly. So what's on tap for today? Today, obviously, writing my first draft. I almost finished with a scene. I still have a little bit left, so I'm going to finish writing that scene right now. Probably start on the next one, and then I am going to take a little bit of a writing break, and I'm going to still work on my first draft, but I'm going to do some brainstorming and plotting because I am getting to a point in this novel where the basic world building I've done isn't enough. I need to start bringing in more aspects of the world, and I haven't really decided on these yet. I have some ideas floating around, but it's getting to the point where I need to commit to something just in order to get the story done. So I'm going to take a little bit of time to do that this afternoon. Then I'm going to jump right back into writing. I do want you to see like what my writing routine is and my process and things like that. And I'll definitely talk to you along the way about how my first draft is going. So yeah, so now I'm going to write my scene. I've got my tea ready. I always like having a special drink while I write at some point in the day. I've got all my stuff here, my notebook, my outline, AirPods. My longtime viewers know I have to write with music. It brings out some kind of creativity in me. I don't know if it makes me focus, if it's like a white noise, I don't know. Fun fact, I don't listen to music with words. because that distracts me and I end up like singing along and paying attention to the lyrics. So everything I listen to is wordless. So I got all my stuff here. I am ready to write. I'm going to write for about an hour or until I get to a good stopping point in the scene, and I'll catch back up with you later. Good evening. It is time for another writing sprint for the evening. I was relatively productive this afternoon. Let me check my word count. As always, I forget to have that ready. This afternoon, I wrote 460 words. Doesn't sound like a lot, and it's really not, but let me tell you what happened. So I only wrote for about an hour, and I usually write about 1,000 words an hour, and I wrote 460. Part of this was because I was writing a chapter, and then as I was trying to make it work, I realized I really didn't need what I was writing, and I deleted some of it. So I probably wrote closer to like 700 or 800 words, and I just axed a bunch of it. I have been having problems lately where I want to describe everything that happens and everything that gets a character from point A to point B. And I'm slowly starting to come to the realization that you don't need to tell every single thing the characters are doing. It's just hard for me because it's like I want to make sure the reader knows how they get to certain places, and I tend to just over-explain. But again, I am aware of this problem, I'm working on it, and that was part of the reason why my word count was low this afternoon. I also did some plotting, and it was very productive. I have been toying with some ideas, and I was able to make them come together and come up with some new ideas. So at least for that little part that I worked on, I think the world building has become a lot more cohesive, and it's making me excited to write what's coming next because I'm going to start introducing some of those elements into my story. So I just got done with a several hour break. I went for a walk, I made dinner. While I was making dinner, I listened to Brandon Sanderson's writing lecture. He's putting this year's writing lecture up on YouTube for free for anyone to watch. So if you're an aspiring writer, I highly recommend you check them out. I did a little bit of learning in my break, and now I'm ready to get back to writing. The plan tonight is just to write. Especially now that I did that plotting, I kind of know what direction I need to go next. And I'm just really excited because I have all these ideas and these scenes in my head that are just waiting to be written, and it's getting to the point where I'm starting to write them all, and it's just so much fun. The rest of this evening is dedicated to my writing. I'll probably take a few breaks here and there just because I have like 3 or 4 hours till I need to go to bed, and I'm not gonna write 3 or 4 hours. That's just way too long for me, and I don't need to write that much tonight. I wanna take my time, enjoy my evening, but I will mostly be writing. I'm gonna go ahead and get set up and then continue on with my first draft. It is day 2 of writing my first draft. I will have many days of writing my first draft. This is gonna take months. But let's recap what I did last night and talk a little bit about what I'm gonna do today. So yesterday total, I wrote 1,722 words. That's including the 450-ish, I believe it was, words that I wrote yesterday afternoon. So that means I wrote last night around 1,300 words. That's really not great considering I did work on it for quite a bit of time. One thing I struggled with last night was I had written a bunch of exciting scenes and then I needed to slow down. And because of that, like I think I write faster when I'm excited and I know what's happening, and when I need to slow down and do more like dialogue and foreshadowing and stuff like that and kind of do a filler scene, I tend to write slower because I'm just not exactly sure what I should put in the scene. Also, I just kind of wasn't feeling it last night. I was feeling pretty uninspired for some reason. So I was forcing myself to write, and I'm glad I wrote because I got some words out, but it just wasn't as productive as I had hoped. One thing I've been starting to have issues with in this first draft, and this is a first draft specific problem, maybe, I don't know, is just the continuous writing. And I know that sounds weird. Before, when I was planning my book, I was doing various activities. I was doing writing practice. I was doing brainstorming and plotting and world building. I was working on a bunch of different things. So anytime I sat down to work on my book, it could be something totally different that I was doing. Now, every time I sit down to work on my book, I'm writing. Now, I know you're probably thinking, well, you're writing a book, you should expect that. And I do. I expect it. But I think what it is the fact that I'm constantly sitting down writing. I believe I foreshadowed this in a video a long time ago, where I work a full-time job and I'm sitting down to do that. It's an office job. I do YouTube as like a second job, and that is also sitting down most of the time because you're editing. That's what takes the most time. And then I'm writing, which is also sitting down in front of a computer. And I think that is more what's making me tired, the constant sitting down and working in front of a computer as opposed to the actual writing part. I think if I didn't have to sit in front of a computer so much in my life, then I wouldn't be like in this funk that I am now. I think it'd be a lot easier for me to sit down and write for an hour, go do something, come back several hours later, write some more, or just have an entire day dedicated to computer work. But the fact that every day I'm on the computer for like, honestly, on average, like 10 hours a day, if you include work and YouTube and writing, I'm averaging about 10 hours a day on the computer every day, and that's exhausting. I want to get up and move around and go do things. So I'm feeling a little trapped at the computer at the moment, and I'm a third of the way done with this book, so I've got a lot more writing to go, and hopefully I'll get used to it, or I'll find something that works and makes me feel a little better, or maybe I'm just in some kind of mood today, I don't know. But that is something I'm struggling with. It's causing me to feel tired when I write and to not get inspired. That kind of explains a little bit about what was going on last night in my head. I was just feeling kind of tired and uninspired. It wasn't really anything to do with the book itself. It was just my mood and how I was feeling. Today, I'm gonna make myself have the goal of writing 2,000 words today. I did a writing challenge recently, and it really helped me to force myself to sit down and write, and to write more than I was planning on. I'm setting this goal today because I have this afternoon and this evening to write. I'm gonna have to take lots of breaks today just because I have some things I need to do around the house. And so my goal is just over the course of the day, write 2,000 words. I think if I have that goal, even if I'm not feeling it in the mood or something, by the time the night rolls around, I'm going to be determined to hit it. As far as writing goes, I'm still working on the filler chapter, and then I'm going to move back into some exciting stuff that's going to happen. I'm really looking forward to it. So I think that'll also help me write a little more quickly tonight. I'm going to go ahead and get set up and start writing, and I'll catch back up with you after. It's the end of the second day of working on my first draft, and I did reach my goal of 2,000 words for the day. I wrote 2,477. So that's pretty good. I am getting back into the groove of things, so I think that little funk I was in yesterday was just like a one-off, and I probably don't have to worry about it as much anymore. I did have more things to do around the house than I thought, and that took up a lot of time. I probably could have written more if I had had more time, but unfortunately I didn't. So I think that limited my word count a little bit today. But that's okay. You know, you got to prioritize what you need to prioritize. So overall this weekend, I didn't add it up. Let's see. So this weekend I wrote over 4,000 words, which is really good. And I'm proud of that. The thing I've learned with the first draft is just to write what you can write and not stress about the word counts as much. A first draft takes a very long time to write because you are basically writing your story from scratch. And it just physically takes time to put all those words on paper. I've been writing for 2 months now, and I'm only a third of the way done with my book. I actually got officially a third of the way done today. I reached 34,770 words. I'm considering 1/3 being, like 33,333. So that was another big accomplishment today. I'm a third of the way done with my book. One thing that I felt like this whole time, which is really weird, I've never talked about this before, is the fact that I feel like I have so much story left to tell, and I feel like I've talked a lot about my story so far. I've written it, but I have so much more left to write. And as I'm sitting here thinking about it, I'm like, well, I'm only a third of the way done with the book. I've got 2/3 left to write. If I get close to the end now, I'm in trouble. So maybe that's just something that I have to look out for, is that constant feeling of I have so much left to write. I have so much left to write, and kind of worrying about it, whereas I'm only still in the beginning of my book, so I shouldn't really be worrying about it. This was just one of many days and one of many weekends that I spend working on my first draft, especially. It's been going on for 2 months. If we use this as an example, I spent 2 months to get a third of the way through. So probably another 4 months, I'll finish the book roughly. That is daunting. That's a long period of time, but I'll get through it, because I'm having a great time doing this and I really enjoy it. Even if I only write 200 words in a day, it just makes me so much happier to have accomplished something rather than nothing. Thanks for writing my first draft with me, and if you wanted to continue to see the progress that I make on my first draft, please follow along and subscribe, and I will see you in the next writing vlog.